Hi everyone, today we are going to walk through ransomware not as an IT problem but as an audit problem, specifically an ITGC problem. Every stage of a ransomware attack maps to control that we as auditors are supposed to test. When that control fails, this is what it costs $57 billion in global damage this year alone. An average ransom demand north of $5 million and organizations taking an average of 24 days just to get back on their feet. Let me start with a story, not a statistic. On Tuesday 2:14 a.m., a finance executive at a mid-sized manufacturing firm opens an invoice. Looks completely normal from a known vendor. Nothing happens on screen, but in the background, a script just quietly executed. For the next 19 days, nothing looks wrong. No alerts, no downtime, no ransom note, but an attacker is inside the network the entire time, mapping file servers, harvesting admin credentials, quietly copying finance and customer data to server outside the company. Then on day 20, every file server goes dark at once. Every screen in the building shows the same message. Pay within 96 hours or your stolen data goes public and the decryption key is destroyed. By the time IT notices anything, this isn't a 2-minute problem to fix. It's a 3-week recovery. Here's the point I want to land before we go any further. Ransomware is not an event, it's a process. Encryption, the part of everyone thinks of as the attack, is actually the last loud visible stage. Everything before it is a silent, and every one of those silent stages is exactly where an ITGC control is designed to catch the attacker before this happens. So what does the process actually looks like? 7 stages: reconnaissance, mapping the attack surface; initial access, which is usually phishing stolen credentials on a or an unpatched VPN; persistence, planting backdoors, creating new admin accounts so they can get back in; lateral movement, spreading across servers and endpoints; exfiltration, stealing the data before they ever encrypt it, which uh, which is what makes this double extortion. Encryption is files which are logged, like ransom note dropped; extortion, the payment demand, the leak side threat. The critical insight for us as auditors is that attackers rarely encrypt on day one. There's a dwell time, that gap between getting in and pulling the trigger, and that gap is shrinking. So, Force 2025 data puts the median time from first access to encryption at just 4 to 5 days now, down from weeks a few years ago. That means our detective controls have far less room for error than they used to. If we are relying on quarterly reviews to catch lateral movement, we are already too slow. Now, if we talk about the audit lens, this is the slide I want you to actually take a photo of. This is the whole point of today's session, mapping each kill chain stage to the ITGC domain that's supposed to stop it, and what it looks like in practice when that control fails. Reconnaissance is stopped by patch management and system hardening, vulnerability management as a domain. If that fails, your attack surface just stays exposed. Initial access is stopped by MFA enforcement and least privilege access management. Fail that and the attacker gets their foothold. Persistence is caught by unauthorized change detection. Change management, fail it and a backdoor sits there unnoticed. Lateral movement is controlled by network segmentation and user access reviews. Segregation of duties, fail it and the attacker spreads across every system you have. Exfiltration is caught by DLP and SIEM alert monitoring. This is our bread and butter. Audit trail and logging, fail it and data walks out the door silently. Encryption is where backup controls come in. Immutable offline backups, fail that and there is no clean copy to restore them. And last is extortion. This is very last stage, comes down to incident response. Your IR playbook and BCDR plan. Fail that and the organization either pays the ransom or goes dark. 7 stages, 7 control domains, 7 audit checkpoints. This is literally our engagement scope. Now, the kill chain itself is universal, but where it hits and what breaks changes a lot depending on the sector our client is in. In healthcare, the target is patient records and claim system, and when it breaks, care delivery halts. Lives are directly at risk. Sophos data shows roughly two-thirds of healthcare organizations have been hit. In manufacturing, attackers go after OT and SCADA systems and engineering IP. When it breaks, production lines and supply chains freeze. Manufacturing is now the single most targeted sector globally in 2025. In financial services, it's transaction system and customer data. And the fallout is regulatory exposure, trust, and liquidity risk. Disclosed attacks were up 66% year over year. And in government, it's citizen services and legacy infrastructure. When that breaks, public services stall and becomes a national security risk. 208 attacks in just the first half of 2025, up 65% year over year. Let's ground this in three real cases, one per sector, because these aren't hypotheticals. Change Healthcare is Change Healthcare, a United Health Group subsidiary, February 2024. Attackers got in through a compromised Citrix remote access account that had no MFA. They sat inside for 9 days, quietly exfiltrating patient and claims data before deploying ransomware on February 21st. And this system processes roughly 1 in 3 US patient records and half of all medical claims nationally. The first tally, 192.7 million individuals data exposed, the largest healthcare breach ever recorded. And the cost to United Health Group by the end of 2024 came in at $3.09 billion, dollars, a figure that kept climbing every single quarter as the true scope became clear. Their very first estimate was only $1.6 billion. Dollars. The ITGC failure here is textbook. No MFA on a legacy portal, no update to access control procedures after a corporate acquisition, and a 9-day dwell time nobody caught. That's access management and audit logging both failing at once. The audit takeaway is that one enforced MFA policy on a single legacy portal cascaded into a national healthcare disruption. The third party and vendor boundary access controls are just as critical as anything internal. Jaguar Land Rover, September 2025. JLR detected the intrusion and proactively shut down IT systems worldwide to contain it, which sounds like the right call, but it halted vehicle assembly across three UK plants. The shutdown lasted 5 weeks because JLR runs on tightly coupled just-in-time supply. Model that description cascaded to roughly 5,000 supplier businesses employing over 100,000 people. Total estimated UK economic loss was 1.9 billion euros. The ITGC failure, a flat, insufficiently segmented IT/OT environment, meant one intrusion forced a total shutdown instead of contained one, and there was no rehearsed, segmented recovery plan that could have restarted production in stages. That segregation of duties and the incident response, or you can say BCDR, both gapped. The takeaway, manufacturing is now the single most targeted sector globally. And when IT and OT aren't segmented, an attacker doesn't just encrypt data. They stop the factory floor and the damage radiates through the entire supplier network. The Colonial Pipeline 2021. Still the reference case everyone in this room should know cold. DarkSide got in using a single compromised VPN password, reused from an unrelated breach on an account with no MFA. In just 2 hours, they exfiltrated about 100 gigabytes of data before encrypting the IT network. Colonial primitively shut down the pipeline supplying 45% of East Coast fuel, triggering a federal state of emergency. They paid $4.4 million dollars in ransom. The DOJ later recovered about 64 of those Bitcoin. The ITGC failure is that no MFA on remote VPN access. a dormant account that was never disabled, and password reuse. A textbook access management failure that a routine user access review would very likely have caught. The takeaway is that one password, one missing MFA control, no IT/OT segmentation, and a nation felt in within days. Basic access hygiene remains the single highest leverage control in the entire ITGC framework. The defense are the three ITGC pillars. So, where do we as auditors actually focus first? These are the three pillars. First is access management and privilege control. Enforce multi-factor authentication everywhere. Critical Critically, apply least privilege, run periodic user access reviews, and disable dormant accounts immediately. 80% of breaches involve compromised credentials. This is where the leverage is. Backup and recovery controls is the second point. There is a 3211 backup rule, which is a modernized data protection strategy. It states you should keep three total copies of your data on two different types of media, with one copy kept offsite and one copy kept offline. And testing restores quarterly, not once a year. Organizations that actually test their backups recover within a week 53% of the time. And change management and patch control is the third option. Enforce change approval workflows, patching critical CVEs within 30 days, and maintaining an approved software library. 32% of manufacturing incidents trace back to unpatched CVEs. Harden these three and the exploitable attack surface shrinks dramatically. This is where we should be spending our test of design and test of effectiveness. So, the key takeaways, let's bring it home. ITGC is not a checkbox, it's a last line of defense. Ransomware doesn't break in through some brilliant zero day most of the time. It exploits weak ITGC controls systematically and silently over days. Four things to remember: access management is single highest leverage control to harden first. Two, backups with it tested restores are a false sense of security, not a real one. Third is patching delays are the attacker's golden window. SLA compliance genuinely matters. It's not a bureaucratic box ticking. Fourth and last is audit logging isn't paperwork. It's the forensic trail when things go wrong. The question our clients need to internalize is not if they will be attacked. It's when ITGC is what determines how quickly they survive it. Thank you.